welcome to a video where I showcase 5 things that you may or may not know. Some of these facts may be in plain sight to some, but for others, this may be the very first time that you hear about them. Let's get started. To start, did you know there is a way you can extend Goatify's active duration if you are the victim in this case? Normally, the effects of Goatify only last for 7 seconds before the player is transformed back into their normal body. However, if one was to enter the pause menu whilst in goat form, for as long as the player remains in the pause menu, they will forever be a goat. Likely what's happening here is that the duration is halted whilst the player is in the pause menu for some reason, as eventually, after leaving the menu for long enough, the player will eventually revert back to their normal selves. As for why entering the pause menu stops the timer of Goatify is rather strange and unusual, especially since it's not exactly something that makes sense for a fucking pause menu of all things to allow you to stay as a goat indefinitely. Secondly, heading back to Garden Warfare 1. Did you know the spray-based characters in that game actually had an anti-mashing system that prevents you from achieving a higher than normal damage output? In Garden Warfare 1, when I go to mash the ever-living shit out of my controller onto this poor innocent brown coat, we can see that despite me being well in range, because of the game's anti-mash system, the weapon will not do any form of damage at all to the brown coat, allowing them to survive for another day. When heading over to Garden Warfare 2, we can see that this anti-mash system is no longer present, and as such, we are allowed to mash to our heart's content and achieve the higher than intended damage output. Why PopCap removed the anti-mashing system is unclear, since it means that players who are aware of the ability to mash gain quite the distinctive advantage over those that do not. But in any case, it seems like PopCap's incompetence at coding their own games strikes once again. Next, did you also know the soldier class actually has a cosmetic in the form of a pair of goggles that, whilst in all kinds of promotional material for the first shooter, was never actually in the game at all. These goggles can be seen on all kinds of posters, as well as several achievement icons, and even the main menu screen on Garden Warfare 1. In Garden Warfare 2, they do technically make an in-game appearance, as if we are to take a look at the model used for Soldier's golden statue, we can see the goggles present on his helmet front and center, but once again, not available to actually equip in-game. Why PopCap continued to use these goggles throughout the promotional material for Garden Warfare 1 isn't exactly clear, though it might have been a default cosmetic that they were planning on giving to him, but were constantly changing their minds about including it or not, and ultimately chose not to, despite it being featured on the fucking statue. Heading over to BFN. Did you know each of the Swarm characters has an upgrade that is permanently disabled in most platforms and outright removed entirely in the Switch release? This was because of a bug that caused their respective abilities affected to become obnoxiously powerful to the point of it being outright disabled. And because this happened right as BFN lost support, the upgrades were never fixed, and as a result were permanently disabled for the rest of BFN's days. Lastly, heading back over to Garden Warfare 2, thanks to the discovery of Rashid, there's this wall right next to the start of the Crazy Targets range that has a rather interesting property. Normally when you shoot at walls, it creates a little effect to show the impact area. To reserve performance, usually these disappear after a while, but for some reason, that is not applied to this wall right here, and as such, you can stack the effects indefinitely. Eventually, looking at the wall with so many effects on it will cause you to start losing frames. If one was to not heed this warning and continue shooting at the wall anyway, one look at the wall can eventually cause your game to shit itself and outright crash.